Welcome to ACF Chefs Forum. We're excited to have an expert here with information just for you, the leaders and future leaders of the food service and baking industries. You're in for a treat today as we have an amazing presenter who will be sharing information on contemporary tarts and related baking techniques. A big thank you to our partners at Retail Bakers of America for bringing us this much appreciated educational opportunity. I'm Jackie Pressinger, American Culinary Federation's Director of Strategic Partnerships, and I'm delighted to welcome you to today's program. And as a proud graduate of the CI's Baking and Pastry degree program, I know I'm really excited for today's demo. We'll be taking questions for our featured chef live during the webinar as we are able. Please be sure to use the chat function to collaborate with other chefs and bakers tuning in, and the Q&A to pose questions to today's guest speakers. Okay, so let's get that discussion going in the chat. If you haven't already, please let us know where you're tuning in from today. I hope you'll all join me in welcoming Chef Marissa Velie, the Certification and Education Director at RBA. To kick off today's webinar and to introduce today's guest, please welcome Chef Marissa. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, thank you, Jackie, for the wonderful introduction. And thank you so much to the ACF for partnering with the Retail Bakers of America for the Chefs Forum. We're really happy to be here. As Jackie mentioned, my name is Marissa Velie. I am the Education Director at the Retail Bakers of America. For those who are not familiar with the RBA, we are the National Nonprofit Trade Association for retail bakeries, baking educators, cake decorators, and industry suppliers. And it is our goal to help provide meaningful education and resources to the baking community. The RBA also offers certifications, including the Certified Master Baker credential. And I'm very excited to introduce to all of you Chef Noah Carroll, Certified Master Baker with the RBA. Chef Noah Carroll has spent over 25 years honing his craft as a pastry chef and baker. After graduating from the Culinary Institute of America, he spent 10 years working in Michelin-starred restaurants and world-famous bakeries like Cafe Baloo, Restaurant Danielle, Brooklyn Fare, Myers USA, and Dominique and Zell Bakery, to name a few. He returned to the CIA in 2017 and is currently a chef instructor where he teaches classes focused on modern French pastry. Today, Chef Noah is going to be making for us a citrus sesame tart. And Noah, I am going to turn it over to you. We are excited to see what you present.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. As Marissa said, I'm going to be presenting one of the products that we teach in the IPP class, the individual production pastry class. It is a citrus sesame tart. In this case, it's going to be a yuzu sesame tart. And I really like this tart for a lot of different reasons. It's a very familiar concept, lemon meringue. Everyone kind of identifies with it or understands what it is. So it's a very approachable product. But at the same time, I've modernized it and made it something that's slightly different and upscaled, through the presentation and through the kind of added flavor components in it. So it's really become one of my favorite items we make here. The tart is going to consist of multiple components. So, we'll have our tart shell. We have a black sesame fouintine. We have candied orange that goes into it. We have a yuzu curd, and then we have the meringue itself to kind of top it out. So I'm going to go through. I'm going to demo kind of these individual components, and then at the end, I'm going to kind of bring it all together and show you how I finish it, which I think is really kind of the coolest part of the tart, if you would. So if there's no kind of questions or concerns, I'm just going to kind of straight go into the products themselves. Good. Good. All right. So our first step, so I'm going to start with our black sesame fouintine. So this is just a combination of 3 different ingredients. We have a black sesame paste. Oh, you can see it over there. That's been combined with my fouintine already in the bowl. And we are just going to kind of set it with a little bit of white chocolate, right? Go in, we'll use our KitchenAid. So we can see. Right, we're just going to mix this until our kind of mix is homogeneous. Everything is nicely coated. It shouldn't take but 30 seconds to a minute. Super quick, super easy. Now we're going to roll this out in between parchment paper. You can see we have this kind of black sesame coated food. Now we want it nice and even and thin when it goes into our tart. Now you can do this on a sheeter. You can do it with a roll-in pin. It really depends on kind of your volume and your size. I'm going to roll it all the way out to the ends. Again, the formulas that you guys are going to be provided should fill this half sheet perfectly. Now, a little bit of a mess. So this is going to be very soft at this point. So I'm going to put it in the freezer so it can kind of set up. And then later on, when we go to build, we'll just cut it with a little ring cutter and it'll pop out very, very nice. So that was our first component for the tart. We're going to move on to our candied orange. So now, whenever I candy citrus, I'm always going to blanch it in cold water. Right, I've got my orange kind of chopped up. I put just enough water to cover it in here, and I'm going to bring this to a boil. And now the whole idea is that we want to reduce the bitterness that's in the peel itself. Because if you've ever just bitten on the rind of an orange, like I know we all have, it's not very pleasant to eat. So again, we boil it out. It kind of softens the peel a little bit. It reduces that bitterness, and we're going to do this 3 separate times. Again, just enough water to cover our little peels. Any more water is just going to take more time, which I don't really want to waste today. Now, the candied orange kind of offers a textural difference in the tart itself. It's something that's going to be a little bit chewy, a little bit spongy. It's going to offer some sweetness. It's just another kind of texture that goes into the product itself. So now, if everyone can stare at the pot, it's going to make it cook a lot faster for me.
And just a reminder for everyone, there is the chat box if anyone has any questions as Chef Carroll is presenting. I'm happy to field those questions for him.
So it's come to a boil. I'm gonna stop it. Gonna strain it out. I'm gonna add it back. Just enough water to cover them, to make them float again. And I'm repeating this a total of 3 times, right? Now, kind of off to the side while I've been waiting, I brought my candy and syrup to a boil. And this is just going to be the combination of the sugar, the water, and the lemon juice. And this is what I'm actually going to candy or confit my citrus in. You know, I've added a little bit of lemon juice to it because, you know, traditionally when you candy, it's more or less a 50-50 blend of sugar and water. And the lemon juice just kind of helps balance out the sweetness in there. A little bit of acidity, a little bit of kind of bite to it. Again, a lot of these components have a lot of sugar in them, especially the meringue. So any place we can add a little bit of acid to kind of help balance it out, it's going to be helpful. Almost to a boil a second time. Again, you don't need to boil them long. We're just kind of bringing the water up to a boil. It should take but another few seconds. Final time.
Chef Carroll, we have a question. How far in advance can the orange be prepared?
I'm sorry?
How far in advance can the orange be prepared for the tart?
Weeks. You know, generally when you confit something or candy it, the shelf life is weeks and weeks and weeks, as long as it's not contaminated. You know, candying is a way to preserve food, almost like pickling. Again, as long as it's not contaminated, it's kept in the refrigerator. There's nothing in it that's going to be really potentially hazardous.
Thank you.
You just got to make sure you handle it properly. Third boil. And dump it out. I'm going to go back on with my syrup. Now, what's important at this point is that you don't have an active roar and boil on your candy and liquid. When you cook it, you want a very, very low simmer. If you boil these too aggressively, or if you heat them too aggressively, they tend to get very tough. They like stick to your teeth. They almost caramelize, and we don't want that. We want something when it's done. It has a texture similar to like al dente pasta. It should have a little bit of bite to it. It shouldn't be mushy. It should be, you know, a little bit chewy. So again, when I like to do this on the induction burner, just because it's a very low, consistent kind of heat. I set it to the lowest setting, and it barely simmers, and it takes, I would say, roughly 45-ish minutes, depending on the size of your citrus bit. You know, bigger pieces will take a little bit longer, but something this size, it's generally going to be around 45 minutes.
And Chef Carroll, when you're boiling the citrus peel, is there a purpose of the 3 times? Is that the magic number in terms of boiling it?
It reduce it. You know, you could boil it for 5 times. You know, I don't think it's necessary to go that far. I think basically every place I've ever worked, we've always blanched it 3 times. So I don't know if it's just a tradition thing. I don't know if it's just something that's stuck in my head, quite honestly. But it's worked very well for me so far. So that's come to a boil. So now again, I'm gonna take this one, I'm gonna put it to the side. I'm gonna let it slowly cook for about 45 minutes. When they're done, again, al dente pasta, they'll get a little bit translucent. And I'm gonna refrain from boiling this at all costs. Put that one to the side. So filling tea candy done. I'm gonna move on to my curd. Now I think this does tend to be probably the more difficult part of the tart. You know, in my case, I'm going to be doing a yuzu curd. I've done this tart, I'm sorry, with lemon. I've done it with lime. I've done it with calamansi. I've done it with yuzu, passion fruit, bergamot. I generally just swap out the citrus, and they all tend to pair very well with the other components. What's important about curd is going to be temperature control. I'm going to cook this to about 85 degrees Celsius. I'm going to take it off. I'm going to strain it. I'm going to cool it down to 45 degrees Celsius, and I'm going to emulsify my butter at that temperature. And this is kind of the key part of this item. And the idea is that I want to preserve the emulsion of the butter. If you've ever melted butter and then refrigerated afterwards, it sets and it separates. You end up with this very grainy kind of consistency on top and this milky white liquid on the bottom. You lose all of the, I don't know, what's great about butter, that smooth, creamy kind of texture. So by controlling the temperature in this curd, we're trying to preserve that texture. So I have my yuzu juice in my pot. I've just put half my sugar in there. I have my eggs in a stainless steel bowl where I put my other half of sugar. You know, I have my gelatin that's been bloomed and sitting in the bottom of my pan. And then I have my butter that I've already softened. How I always explain the texture of butter is it should be something you can spread on toast without kind of like breaking the bread. So it should be very soft and pliable. If the butter is too cold, it's going to break the emulsion in the curd when we go to emulsify. If it's too warm, then it just kind of melts. And again, we lose that beautiful texture that butter has. So I've already softened that ahead of time. Now I'm going to bring my my yuzu juice and sugar to a boil. All right, so my yuzu's come to a boil. I'm going to pour it over my eggs. I'm going to whisk till it's all homogeneous. And back into my pot. And now I'm going to cook it till it thickens. When it's ready, it's going to have a similar consistency to like mayonnaise. It'll be thick, it'll be creamy. And you're cooking to about 85 degrees Celsius. I want to keep it in constant motion. I don't want to scramble my eggs.
Chef, do you adjust your sugar content based on the type of juice you're using in your curd? Or does it remain
Sometimes
the
you
same?
have to, depending on the puree or juice itself. You know, like some of the purees are concentrates, so they get a bit more acidic. Some of them have sugar added, you have to be aware of. But honestly, for the most part, it's in the similar range. Like I know passion fruit very often comes as a concentrate, you know, when it comes from Boreon or perfect puree. But on the other side, lemon juice and yuzu tend to be just straight juices. Let's see if I can give you a better view. Again, you're going to see this foam on top start to disappear. The cream itself is starting to thicken. I'm getting very close at this point. Yep. Got a good consistency to it. Into my strainer. Right. Now I need to cool down my my curd. And I'm going to cool to 45 Celsius. I'm going to go on to the ice bath. Oops. Before I go on to there, I want to make sure that my gelatin is dissolved. Give it a little stir-ski. Now I'm going. And I want to actively be stirring this. I want to make sure I'm in all the corners. I want to make sure the tip of my thermometer is in the center of my product and it is not touching the steel on the bottom. Almost there. Beautiful. So 45 degrees Celsius. Now I'm going to add all of my softened butter. See if I can get this glove on without tearing. Again, our butter should be very soft, very pliable. It shouldn't offer a lot of resistance to it, but at the same time, it shouldn't be melted. Got to plop all that in. Then in with a hand blender. Wrong glove. All right. So now you can see when it's done, we have this very smooth, kind of thick cream to it. You know, as it fully sets, it's going to firm up quite a bit, and it'll be something that's pipeable. But for now, this is what we got. So that's curd.
Jeff, is the curd also something you're able to make in advance?
Yes. You know, in a production setting, all of this would get made in advance, with the exception of the meringue itself. I would make, 1 second, sorry. I would make enough curd to last me a week, or 5 days or something around then. You know, like I would make enough candied orange to last me a month. You know, the fountine is something that holds up very well in the freezer. As long as it's wrapped, it's good for at least a couple months in there. So they're all like production items that you can build in bulk and then just pull and build, which is exactly what I did when I was running pastry shops. All right. So the meringue is going. Now through the magic of TV, I'm gonna go through the build. So you can see I've already got some prepared tart shells. You know, they already have the black sesame disc in there. They have the candied orange bits in there. My shells have already been baked off. And then just a note on the shells themselves, thickness has a big impact on your product. Your tart shell should be very thin, just enough to kind of hold your ingredients together or your components together. A thick tart shell is very dry. It kind of throws off the balance of your tart itself, right? So I have my curd that's already been prepared. We're going to pipe over. To cover everything. And then I'm just going to take an offset to kind of level it nice and flat.
Jeff, can you speak a little bit to how you develop your flavor profiles when you're developing a new tart?
I mean, it comes from a lot of different directions, to be honest. You know, sometimes I see I don't know, a new fruit, a new liquor, a new spice that just happens to come my way, and then kind of base it around that. Sometimes it's just looking back and seeing, you know, what I did before in different formats. You know, a lot of times with my class, I try to incorporate a more kind of worldly view of flavors that go into it. You know, we have a lot of international students here. I have a lot of Indian students. I have a lot of Korean students that will bring in certain products from their homeland. And I'm like, how can I use this? How can I incorporate it into what I teach? So there's no like one answer to that question. You know, a lot of times it's stalking on Instagram until you see something that catches your eye. Inspiration comes in all sorts of different directions. So, right, all my tarts, they're leveled nice and flat, they're full. Put these in the fridge. And now I'm gonna go on to the Italian meringue, or kind of what we're gonna use to finish our tart. So I have my sugar already kind of cooking off to the side. And I've got my egg whites starting to whip. I'm gonna cook my sugar to approximately 121 degrees Celsius. And I'm gonna get my egg whites to like a nice kind of frothy, kind of soft heat. Right. I know it's hard to tell, but you can see we're starting to get some volume in there. Sugar's not quite ready, so I'm going to slow that down. Once again, if everyone stares into the pot harder, it goes much faster.
With this tart, would you always stick with an Italian meringue, or would a Swiss be okay as well?
You can do it with Swiss meringue. I like Italian. It's just a bit lighter. You know, it's a little bit more delicate into the tart. But you know, a Swiss meringue would work just as well. I just wouldn't use a common or a French meringue. You know, usually this is going to sit in a tart or in a display case all day long. I feel like the Italian meringue just holds up a little bit better. Get back on there. Almost there. 116. Finishing components out. Go time. So I'm going to turn my mixer all the way up. And then I'm going to stream my sugar down the side of the bowl. That way I just don't get it all over the insides, right? That's up. Now, I use these brands. These are just like Gazelle kind of presses, and a lot of times you use them to fry cookies and whatnot. But they work great for this application. And they have a bunch of different shapes to them. They have stars, they have, butterflies, they have little snowflakes. I basically chose this brand because it kind of looks like a flower. And it also kind of looks like a cross section of a piece of citrus. So we have all of our little segments that go through it. You can find them very easily on Amazon, and they're super cheap, very accessible. So my meringue is done. It's very stable. It's very firm. It's best to use this while it's slightly warm. It just tends to create a smoother kind of pattern on the top. And you do need to use this very quickly. Like the longer this sits, the kind of worse that your brand and your torch is going to look in the end. So. Now the fun part. Got my tart. I'll see this way. I have a ring cutter that's just slightly bigger than my tart shell itself. I'm gonna grease the inside of this slightly with some pan spray. I'll put it around my tart. Okay, and when I pipe, I'm gonna start on the outside and then work my way to the inside. I'm going to pipe more than I think, so it's kind of up and over the edges of the tart. I'll level in one direction. I'll level in the other. I'll pull my ring up. I'll take my brand. I'm going to go about halfway down. Then I'm going to torch it. Okay. So you can see we have this nice kind of clean impression. Our sides are nice and clean all the way around. Okay. Again. Spray. Round. And then just kind of keep going.
Chef, being there in the New York area, have you noticed any kind of top trends in pastry or any insights maybe for the upcoming holidays and holiday menus?
I mean, not so much for holidays. I feel like holidays in this area, or at least tend to be very traditional and kind of like what we offer. You don't want to reinvent something for Thanksgiving. It's going to be pies and whatnot. The trends I see more often than not are really kind of stepping outside of like the Eurocentric model. You see a lot of different cultures, foods being embraced and kind of highlighted and elevated right now, which is a beautiful thing. And done. So in the end, we cut. We can see we have this beautiful cross section. We have all of our layers. Again, I really like this tart. It's very simple in kind of how it's presented. You know, it doesn't look like there's a lot going on with it. But once you bite into it and start to eat it, it's a very complex item. You know, you have your tart shell, which is like this kind of crumbly cookie. You have this fountine, which is this very like crisp layer. You have these chewy kind of candied orange bits. You have this dense, smooth curd. Then you have this very light torched kind of meringue. And when you get all of that together, it just creates a lovely balance. So.
I'm sure everyone watching here wishes they could taste through the screen right now. Thank you. We did have a question about the when you're dipping the brander, is that cold water or hot water?
It really doesn't make a difference.
Okay.
The idea is just to get the brand wet so the meringue doesn't stick to it. But then also the residual water prevents that area from taking color from the torch. But cold water, hot water, it's not going to make a difference.
And then once you have the tarts complete, what is the shelf life for something like that?
I wouldn't, 24 hours basically. And I would say that I wouldn't sell a tart past 24 hours. Because, you know, the next day the shell gets very soft, it gets soggy. It's not that you can't eat it. It's just I wouldn't sell it as a profession.
For any interested students, could you tell us a little bit more about the CIA program there?
Yeah, absolutely. The school has a variety of different kind of programs to go into. You know, we have culinary, we have bacon and pastry as our associate degrees. You know, I teach in the bacon and pastry program, but it's a 2-year, very intensive program to get your associates. You go through a variety of different kind of techniques and specialties. You know, you start off with a very basic fundamental class. You take a classical cake class. You take a basic breads class, which is just like hearth breads and rolls. You take the class that I teach, which is IPP, and you do stuff like this. And then usually you go out on your extern. And then when you come back, you go into more specialized classes. So when you get back, you're doing wedding cakes and sugar pieces, you're doing chocolates and confections, you're doing plated desserts and specialty breads. So your second year here tends to kind of elevate from your first year. And then beyond the actual kitchen classes, the school offers bachelors in a variety of different subjects. There's food science, there's applied foods, there is hospitality. I'm blanking on the other one that we offer. And then we also offer a variety of master's programs now. There's a wine studies, there's a sustainable food system studies. They're introducing a culinary therapeutics and a culinary educator master's programs. So the school is kind of branching out quite a bit into different areas of our industry. I'll tell you, I graduated here in 2006. I was a teaching assistant in 2007. I loved the program when I came as a student. I love it as a faculty member now. It really kind of opened my eyes to what is out there and really prepared me to do well when I went into the city.
The students are very lucky to have you there, Chef Carroll. Are there any resources that you would recommend as for pastry chefs out there beyond culinary school? Are there go-to resources that you use?
Google. I mean, you search like Instagram. You know, Instagram is both a blessing and a curse. You get to see what people are doing in real time. You know, you can see what the trends are immediately. You can follow the top restaurants and top chefs and top pastry chefs in the world, and just kind of see where they're taking their craft. You know, beyond that, blogs. You know, Eater is one of my favorite blogs to go to. They do all the major cities in the U.S. Again, it's just a way to kind of see where our industry is going. YouTube, you know, you can see all sorts of videos, you know, whether it be good or bad, you can still get an understanding of what's out there. You just have to put it in perspective when you're watching it.
One of our viewers here has a great question. If you were to do the tart as a plated dessert, do you have any suggestions for accompaniments for that?
I mean, it would need a frozen component. It would need a sauce for sure. You know, you could always deconstruct it if you wanted to do it that way too. Like if you didn't want to just present, you know, a tart on a plate, you can break down the components and reimagine them, which is definitely something I've done. But it would need, again, sauce. It will need a frozen component, a sorbet of some sort. So what I would pair it with, I don't know. There's lots of different options when it comes to citrus. You know, maybe some fresh citrus, you know, Supremes on there. Yeah.
We have a certified master baker exam question. What was the most challenging part of going through the CMB exam for you?
I found just staying organized and focused was the biggest challenge of it. All of the products that we made throughout the exam were all something I was very familiar with. It was a matter of combining them all and keeping your mind focused throughout the test. It like mentally, it's exhausted by the time you finish. But I want to say we made 11 or 12 different complete products in a 2-day period. And just balancing all of that, and you know, times when you need to laminate and do your folds, like when you're punching down your bread for your bowl ferments, you know, when you've got stuff baking, and it's just being able to balance everything at once was the hardest part. Yeah, that's got to be the biggest challenge. And I'll also tell you is like I failed one part of my exam, and I knew I failed it, like, but I still just had to go back and do it again. So even though it's, you know, you may kind of falter as you go through the process, it's really just part of the experience and all.
Time management component is always a challenge, I think, as a part of that exam.
Yeah,
Those like Chef Carroll mentioned that aren't familiar with the program, it is a 2-day, it's a written exam that they take ahead of time, and then a 2-day practical exam with 8 hours of production each of those days. So it's quite a rigorous exam, like Chef Carroll was saying.
Yeah. And I mean,
we're very proud to have you as one of our certified master bakers.
I mean, it was a lot of trial runs before going into it too. You know, for like the 6 weeks before, I did probably 4 full runs on the weekends, just to get my timing down and just to feel comfortable with it.
Chef Carroll, it has been such a pleasure to have you here at the Chefs Forum. Thank you so much for being here and sharing this beautiful tart with us and all of the techniques involved. I'm going to turn it back over to Jackie to wrap things up.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, wonderful. I wish I was there. It looks so spectacular, so delicious. Thank you so much to both of you for being here and for sharing. And a huge virtual round of applause as we thank Chef Noah Carroll and Chef Marissa Velie. And of course, thank you to the RBA. We appreciate you taking the time to share your skills and your enthusiasm for the baking craft with the current and future bakers who are tuning in. Really, really great information and inspiration. For those of you tuning in, please be on the lookout for the survey that you'll receive tomorrow, along with the recording and the recipe. And you'll need to complete the survey in order to earn your 1 hour of ACF CEH. Of course, as Chef mentioned, if you're thinking about a degree in baking and pastry, please check out cichef.edu for more information on their programs and how to apply to the CIA. And if you're interested in baking and pastry certifications, please visit both the RBA and ACF websites to discover how you can start your journey. We know that you all have a passion for pastry. That's why you're tuning in. So we hope that you'll also join us later this month for the ACF Advanced Pastry Summit to be held October 20th at Johnson Wales University, Charlotte. There's still time to register. You'll see demonstrations by Certified Master Pastry Chef Frank Volkamer, Certified Executive Pastry Chef or Artisan Susan Nodder, Certified Master Baker William McCarrick, and many more great presenters. So you don't want to miss out. Be with us in person. Register today at acfchefs.org. And I hope you'll join us for our next webinar, October 17th. We'll have a session on sustainability and food waste utilization live from Brightwater, a Center for Food Studies. On behalf of the ACF National Office, thanks again for tuning in for this delicious learning opportunity. Thanks again to the Retail Bakers of America. Thanks to Chef Velie, and a huge thank you to Chef Noah Carroll. And of course, thank you all for joining us today. We'll see you soon.